I never believed in cursed objects. That kind of thing belonged in horror films or dusty old legends. But that was before the estate sale on Halberd Street, before the mask. It was a foggy Saturday morning when I first laid eyes on it. The house was one of those forgotten Victorian giants, tucked behind hedges that hadn't been trimmed in years. The sale had a haunting silence to it. No chatter, no music, just the occasional floorboard creaking under slow-moving feet. I had gone there looking for a reading chair, but my eyes landed on something else in the corner of the attic. A wooden mask, its surface smooth, but oddly warm to the touch. It wasn't beautiful, it was unsettling. The carved expression was fixed in an ambiguous grin, neither joyful nor malicious, just empty. Something about it made me hesitate, and yet I bought it. The mask sat on the mantel for weeks. I told myself I liked its rustic quality, the craftsmanship. But in truth, I couldn't stop looking at it. Sometimes I catch it in my peripheral vision, slightly turned, as if it had moved. At night I started hearing sounds. Faint breathing, a dragging noise along the hallway floor. My wife, Eleanor, said it was just my imagination, or maybe the house settling. Then came the dreams. I was standing in front of a mirror, wearing the mask. But the reflection wasn't mine. It was someone else. Eyes too wide, mouth twitching at the corners. Every morning I'd wake with a tightness in my chest, like I'd forgotten how to breathe. One evening, we hosted a dinner for some friends. Wine was flowing, laughter echoing through the house. That's when our friend Martin noticed it. "Why would you keep that thing on display?" he asked, pointing. I looked at the mask, then back at him. "What do you mean?" "I swear it just looked at me." Everyone laughed it off, but Martin didn't. He stared at it the rest of the night. As he was leaving, he told me, "You should get rid of it. I'm serious. That thing isn't right." That night, Eleanor shook me awake. She was pale, her eyes wild. "Someone's in the house," she whispered. I grabbed the bat by the bed and crept downstairs. Every light was off, but the mask, it was gone. I searched every room, every cabinet. Nothing. I returned to the bedroom only to find it lying on my pillow. I didn't scream. I couldn't. My throat was dry, my fingers numb. Eleanor refused to sleep in the same room after that. I couldn't blame her. I tried to throw it away, drove to a landfill an hour out of town, tossed it into the pit myself. The next morning, it was back on the mantel. I stared at it for a full 5 minutes. My heart pounded in my ears. My mind refused to understand. I hadn't told a soul where I went. I had watched it fall beneath garbage and soil. That day, I called in sick to work. I needed answers. I returned to the house on Halberd Street, but it was gone, demolished. Nothing but an empty lot and a cracked foundation. Desperate, I visited the local archives, dug through property records, news clippings. The house had belonged to a man named Irving Delane, a reclusive collector of ritual artifacts. He had vanished in 1974. No body, just a mask left behind on his chair. The photograph from the police file made my stomach turn. It was the same mask. By then, Eleanor had left to stay with her sister. "It's that thing," she said. "You've changed. You're not you anymore." She was right. I barely recognized myself. I wasn't sleeping, I wasn't eating. When I looked in the mirror, something looked back. But it wasn't me. I would find the mask in different places now. The shower, the kitchen table. Once I found it in my closet, wearing one of my shirts. I fell to the floor sobbing. I tried burning it. It wouldn't catch fire. Tried smashing it with a hammer. Barely scratched. I called priests, mediums. One refused to enter the house. Another passed out before he made it up the stairs. Eventually, I gave in. I wore it. I don't know why. Maybe to end it. Maybe to understand. But the moment it touched my face, the world went silent. I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. I wasn't me anymore. I saw things, memories that weren't mine, faces, screams, fire, rituals. I felt every soul the mask had consumed, and I understood. It didn't just show you something, it took you. I tore it off and passed out. When I awoke, it was on the floor beside me, smiling. I put it in a box, locked it, buried it deep in the woods. That was 3 months ago. I still hear it, whispering, calling. Sometimes I see it in reflections, in store windows, puddles, spoons, grinning. I haven't told anyone. What would I say? That a piece of carved wood stole my life? But I know someone will find it, and I need them to know. Don't put it on. It all began on a Thursday morning in late October. The sky hung low over the small Pennsylvania town of Millbury, clouds swollen with the kind of grey that made you forget the sun existed. John Mathers, a 48-year-old hardware store owner, stepped onto his front porch to grab the mail. Bills, a few coupons, and one unmarked box. No sender, no return address. Just his name written in neat, slanted cursive. John furrowed his brow. He wasn't expecting any deliveries. Curiosity tugged at him like a child pulling a sleeve. He brought the box inside, setting it on his kitchen counter. His wife, Lydia, was out visiting her sister, and the house was unusually quiet. Inside the package, nestled in layers of brown paper and straw, lay a single item, a Venetian-style mask. Deep crimson with golden accents, delicate yet oddly sinister. The eye holes seemed to watch him even as he turned the mask in his hands. A small note fell out. "Wear me to see the truth." He chuckled uneasily. Halloween was only a few days away. Maybe it was a prank, a marketing stunt. But the note's tone felt personal. He checked for any return label, searched the packaging for clues, but found nothing. He held the mask at arm's length, uneasy now. It wasn't just the mask itself. It was the weight of something else he couldn't name. That evening, John couldn't shake the image of the mask. It sat on his mantle now, like it belonged there, despite having never seen it before today. He poured himself a whiskey and sat, staring at it, the room filled with the soft ticking of the grandfather clock. At precisely midnight, a sharp sound snapped him awake. He didn't even realize he had dozed off. It was the mask. Or rather, the mask had fallen, landing face up on the hardwood floor. He approached it cautiously. The house was still, silent. But when he picked it up, he swore he heard a whisper, so soft, almost like it was inside his ear. He stood there, heart thudding. "Hello?" he called out, almost embarrassed. Of course no one answered. Still, the sensation lingered. It wasn't just hearing, it was feeling a presence. as if the mask wanted something. The next night, unable to resist, John placed the mask over his face. Darkness. Then, flashes. A corridor he didn't recognize. Walls smeared with something dark. A woman crying behind a locked door. A child's voice screaming his name. He ripped the mask off and gasped for air. The room spun. He stumbled to the bathroom, splashed water on his face and stared into the mirror. For a second, just a second, his reflection wasn't his own. It was someone else. Someone wearing the mask. Shaken, he tried to go back to sleep, but his dreams were twisted versions of what he'd seen. Distorted hallways, voices calling his name, a feeling of being watched. When morning came, he looked as if he hadn't slept in weeks. By the 5th day, John couldn't stop thinking about the mask. He barely went to the store anymore. Lydia had started noticing. "John, what's going on with you? You look like you haven't slept in days." "I'm fine, just distracted." That night, after Lydia fell asleep, he wore it again. This time, the vision was longer. He saw himself standing in the middle of a room he recognized as his basement. There were tools laid out, but not for carpentry. A voice behind him whispered, "You've done this before." He jerked the mask off. Sweat soaked his shirt. His hands shook. What was happening to him? Were these hallucinations or memories? John began digging through old photo albums, storage boxes, even city records. Something was clawing at the back of his mind. A memory, a buried truth. He uncovered a newspaper clipping from 1981. Local couple found dead in abandoned farmhouse. Only survivor, 5-year-old boy. The boy in the photo was him, but he didn't remember any of it. His adoptive parents never told him. He confronted Lydia with the article. Her face turned pale. "I didn't think you'd ever find out. They said it was better if you never knew." "Why?" he demanded. "Because what happened in that house was evil, John, and you were too young to understand." That night he dreamt of the mask, of it calling to him from behind the locked basement door. When he woke, the key, the one he hadn't seen in years, was lying on his pillow. He went downstairs, unlocked the basement and stepped into the cold, stale air. As he reached the bottom, he felt something shift in the air, like the room itself exhaled. Tools, a table, chains, stains on the concrete. Memories came flooding back, not his adoptive life, his original life. Screaming, being hidden, watching. A circle of people in masks chanting. His mother's voice, faint and desperate. "Don't let him see." He confronted Lydia again, this time furious. "Why didn't you tell me? What happened in that house?" She sat trembling, tears in her eyes. "Your real parents were involved in something dark. Rituals. They wore masks, John. They believed wearing them connected them to another world. That night, something went wrong." John's hands trembled. "And the mask I got, it was in your things. I buried it years ago. Someone must have found it." John felt the room shrink. He couldn't breathe. "You should have burned it." "I tried," she whispered. "It wouldn't catch fire." He wore the mask one last time, but this time he didn't resist. He was back in the farmhouse. Back in 1981, he saw his parents in robes, chanting. He saw the room they locked him in, and then he saw himself, not as a child, but as he was now, standing behind them, watching. The masked version of him whispered, "You've always known." He watched as the ritual went wrong, as the others began to scream, as the walls bled, as something ancient came through. His mother tried to save him. His father offered him instead. He woke up screaming, drenched in sweat. But something was different now. The mask was gone. In its place, a mirror. And in the reflection, the mask wasn't on his face. It was his face. He touched his skin. It felt normal, but his reflection didn't move the same way. It was delayed, like a broken puppet. And behind his reflection, the faint shape of a child, watching. It all started with the package. On a chilly October morning, Daniel Moore, a 53-year-old antique dealer from Portland, found a small, unmarked box left on the doorstep of his shop. There was no return address, no shipping label, just a plain brown parcel wrapped neatly with twine. Curiosity piqued, Daniel brought it inside and placed it on the counter. He stared at it for a moment, heart oddly tense. He'd received unusual items before. People often dropped off dusty heirlooms and forgotten treasures for appraisal, but something about this package felt intentional. When he finally opened it, he found an old mask inside. Not a Halloween mask or some cheap party decoration. This was something far older. The material was stiff, like aged leather, and the surface was painted with intricate black and gold symbols that curled like vines. The eyes were hollow, yet something in their shape gave the eerie impression that they were watching. Daniel blinked. "The hell?" he murmured, brushing his fingers along the ridges. Cold, too cold for a room temperature object. That night, Daniel placed the mask on a mannequin head in the back of his shop, behind the glass display case. He switched off the lights, locked up, and headed home. But sleep didn't come easy. At around 3:02 a.m., Daniel sat upright in bed, heart pounding. He thought he heard whispering. At first it seemed like a dream, soft, unintelligible murmurs. But when he held his breath, the noise continued, almost like someone breathing. He turned on every light in his house, checked each room, but found nothing. Still, the chill clung to his skin, and the whispering remained etched in his ears. The next day, Daniel returned to the shop and immediately felt that something was off. The mask wasn't where he'd left it. Instead of being behind the display case, it was sitting on the checkout counter, as if someone had placed it there deliberately. But the doors were locked. No sign of a break-in, no footage on the security cameras. He laughed nervously, trying to brush off the unease. Maybe he'd misplaced it. Maybe. But as the days passed, other strange things started happening. Items were moved, lights flickered, and customers commented on a strange coldness in the shop. One woman even pointed at the mask and muttered, "That thing's cursed," before walking out. To put his mind at ease, Daniel decided to test the mask. He took it home one evening, stood in front of his bathroom mirror, and, against his better judgment, put it on. At first, nothing happened. The leather felt tight against his skin, and the eye holes distorted his vision. But then, the temperature in the room dropped. Frost formed on the corners of the mirror. And worst of all, Daniel couldn't take it off. He tugged at it, panic rising, breath fogging the mirror. His fingers clawed at the edges, but it wouldn't budge. Then, in the reflection, he saw something that made his blood freeze. Someone, or something, stood behind him. He turned around quickly. No one, just his quiet bathroom. But when he looked back in the mirror, the figure remained. A tall, shadowy silhouette, draped in black, face obscured. And then, a voice. Deep, guttural, yet strangely familiar. Truth wears many faces. Daniel stumbled back, slamming into the sink. The mask suddenly loosened and fell into the basin with a heavy thud. He gasped for breath, drenched in sweat. His face was pale, eyes bloodshot. What just happened? Determined to understand what he was dealing with, Daniel reached out to a historian friend, Claire, who specialized in ancient artifacts. When she saw the mask, her Her face went pale. "This is from the Osei tribe," she whispered. "West African. Legend says the mask was used in rituals to expose hidden truths. But the wearer, they risk losing their identity." "Losing their identity?" Daniel echoed, confused. "Not just metaphorically. Some believe the mask stole your soul, replaced you with something else." That night, Daniel didn't sleep. He sat in his living room, lights on, the mask sealed in a box and shoved into the back of his closet. At 2:43 a.m., the power went out. The silence was suffocating. Then came the footsteps. Slow, heavy, deliberate, creaking across the wooden floorboards. Daniel gripped a flashlight and crept toward the hallway. As the beam flickered to life, it caught the edge of a shadow slipping into his bedroom. He followed, heart racing, but the room was empty, except the box was open and the mask gone. Over the next week, Daniel began to change. He couldn't remember conversations. Friends said his voice sounded different. He'd wake up in strange places, once in the woods, barefoot, with mud on his hands. Worst of all, he'd see things that weren't there. Reflections smiling when he wasn't, hearing laughter from empty rooms. Claire came to check on him and was horrified. "You need help. This isn't just some curse, it's becoming part of you." "I feel fine," Daniel said with a strange smile, too wide, too sharp. Claire returned one last time, determined to destroy the mask. But when she entered Daniel's house, it was cold, silent. The walls were lined with mirrors, all covered in black cloths. She called his name, and then she saw him. Daniel stood at the end of the hallway, wearing the mask. "I see now," he said, voice warped. "The truth beneath is beautiful." Claire backed away slowly. "Take it off, Daniel. This isn't you." But he only laughed, a deep, echoing sound. "I am what's left after the truth." Claire escaped, barely. The house caught fire that night. No one knows how. Daniel was never found. Police reported that all mirrors in the home had been shattered from the inside. The mask was missing. Rumors spread of a masked figure appearing in reflections, of people losing time, their faces subtly different. Claire has since gone quiet. Some say she disappeared. Others say she started wearing a veil, afraid of mirrors. And somewhere, the mask waits.